nailed it.
Nailed it. You did it. You did
With
it right.
Kendall Buck, the host of our Nailed It. Kendall is the executive vice president of the State New Hampshire Builders Association. And he is going to provide us with much information on the industry. And also, I'm a member of the association, so it's added benefit to our members, too.
Absolutely, Glynis. Happy to be here.
I was going to say congratulations. It's a new year. Happy New Year.
We did survive. We're into a new
We
year.
did. It's 2014.
It is.
It's looking good, I see, on the horizon for the building industry.
Well,
it's looking real good.
The horizon is looking better than it was, no question about it. The term is a new normal. It isn't the way it was during the real run-up to the recession, but that's a good thing in some respects as well.
We'll probably never will go back to that, nor do we want to. Do you think, Kendall, going back to that boom?
We need steady growth in all industry sectors in this state, whether it's high-tech or the real estate industry. The whole state has to move forward with job creation, good quality jobs, so they have the income to buy goods and services, whether it is at the local restaurant, the stores, or indeed to buy homes or have homes remodeled. And so things are headed in the right direction.
How is the mortgages, that whole debacle? Has that been, are we on a nice, steady road now with mortgages, interest rates on mortgages, all that? How is the mortgage industry doing?
Well, I can give a little bit of information on that, but our guest this morning probably can give us more in the trench information, and we'll introduce her in a few moments. But the mortgage situation has straightened out a little bit. However, there are concerns on the horizon with what Congress might do with what's called the GSEs, the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those organizations that bought up most of the mortgages on the secondary market and continue to do so nowadays. But Congress really wants to downsize them, if not put them out of existence, and do more of the private market mortgage financing or purchases of mortgages. And that isn't necessarily bad, but we feel that the federal government really still has to be there as an emergency backstop and put their weight behind it. So it's a long, complicated issue that hopefully Congress in Washington, D.C. gets it right.
And if they do get it right, Kendall, do you think that will neutralize the entire industry? Because right now, I mean, it's all over the place. You know, it seems to get steady, and then we go into a lapse. What do you think? Do you think maybe if Congress makes these decisions, is it going to hurt us or is it going to benefit us?
Well, that remains to be seen, but the mortgage industry is very settled at this point. Interest rates are still historically low. They've inched up a little bit, but that has not really cut down too much on mortgage activity, that is the real estate industry. And again, our guest this morning can talk more about what's going on in the actual new home building business. But interest rates are still good. Credit is more difficult to get for the consumer. That's not necessarily bad in terms of historically when we've had problems in the mortgage industry. It's because the banks and mortgage companies gave money to people that really couldn't afford it and couldn't afford to pay it back. So there's a lot of new rules. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was created from the Dodd-Frank Act. There are new rules, qualified residential mortgage rules. And so there's a lot of words in the newspaper nowadays that really now banks are going to have to ensure that the people who borrow the money can pay it back. That seems to be common sense that should have been there all along. So there's some good things.
You think.
There's some things that come out of this that are positive.
Which is good, because I remember at a time, you know, I've had a mortgage for years, 15 some odd years, but they were giving mortgages to people that had no business even applying for one. So hopefully this is going to straighten everything out. You know, I hope it does increases our credit a little bit better, because we were all hurt by the the downsizing and all of the mortgage foreclosures, and we were, victims of it. So I'm hoping that this is going to hopefully raise, our credit a little bit better. It's taken a long time.
Well, it was a long recession, and again, we've come out of it. The real estate industry in the state is getting better. The foreclosure market in terms of distressed properties, bringing down pricing, bringing down appraisals. It's still there, but it's easing a little bit as far as I can tell. Sales are up. Prices are up, which is good for the economy. You don't want a rampant inflation in real estate, which happened many years ago here in New Hampshire, creating real unaffordability in terms of purchases of houses. So, answer your question, and the question I get all the time, cautiously optimistic, things are going better.
Good. Now, let's hear a little bit more about that with our guest. I'll let you do the introductions, Kendall.
I'm happy to do so, and welcome to the Nailed It version, Dee DeHarness, who is with Ashwood Development Companies in Hudson. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Good morning.
Welcome. Dee is a long-term member of the New Hampshire Home Builders Association through our Greater Manchester and Ashwood chapter that you mentioned, sponsoring this event. Dee is also senior officer of the New Hampshire Home Builders Association, so one of my bosses. I'll be nice.
Oh, I love it.
I'll be nice. But again, a leading developer and builder of homes in the state, as well as an officer of the association. And welcome today to talk a little bit about the business.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have you because, like we said, when you first came in this morning, I'm expecting a male. I hate to say that, but I was. And then I see this very pretty blonde coming down. And I'm like, oh, can I help you? Where are you going? She's like, she was with you, Kendall.
Well, see, you're stereotyping the industry incorrectly.
You know what? I am finding, and maybe, Dee, you're seeing this too, it's becoming a woman's world, Kendall. So I think it's wonderful that we have the guests that we do because it is. Women they're nailing it. They're hammers. They're sledges. They're doing good jobs.
Quite honestly, I've been in the industry about 15 years, and anytime I work with subcontractors or vendors or anybody in this industry, I get, are you the realtor? Are you the accountant person?
Ooh.
No, she runs the place.
I run the place.
Yeah, girl. You go, girl. So welcome. Welcome to my little pod with Kendall. And I know there's a lot of questions that we have regarding your development business, number one, but also as a realtor, real estate knowledge. We'll start talking about where we're going.
So what's going on, Dee? What are you finding in the market? Glynis just asked me. I gave sort of a 40,000-foot view, but down in the trenches in terms of trying to build and sell homes, what's Ashwood Development finding these days compared with the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, in general, I would say probably 4 or 5 years ago, Ashwood Development Companies, as well as many home builders of our size, were building a lot of speculative inventory. So we would have plenty of inventory. Buyers would come out. We wouldn't be sitting on that inventory very long. What we've seen happen over the last 3 to 5 years is we've put up the spec inventory, not at the rate that we traditionally have done, but it sits a little longer. Certainly, the last year or so has been better. We're fortunate that we've been able to have homes standing for people to come in. And I guess that's what we're finding is buyers want to come in. They've either sold something or they're ready to buy.
So it's funny that you say that, Dee, because I was going to ask Kendall, the question I was going to go with Kendall on was also speculative, building and buying. I mean, our builders now, they used to build on speculation.
Some did. Mm-hmm.
A lot of them don't. Some did, but I know in Amherst there was all these new developments going up, and I would say, "Where's the buyers?" But they were putting them up.
I think subdivision builders, production builders, which at one time Ashwood Development Companies, we were certainly considered that. With the market, we've had to change from that business model, if you will. So production builders certainly built a lot of speculative inventory back 5 years ago. I don't think you see that as much anymore.
No, because Does it have a thing to do with getting the financing?
That would be a part of it, I'd suspect, Dee, is it not, in terms of banks lending the money to developers to do speculative building that used to take place?
Construction lending is very difficult right now to get, has been difficult for quite some time. Again, we've been around a long time, so we have a lot of very good relationships with our lenders. However, during the recession, I guess, can we call it that?
Yeah, is that what it is?
It's official now, right?
Is it official? We're in a recession, out of it?
So,
yeah.
So they tightened up a lot. We had to go through a lot of creative meetings and work with our lenders to keep pushing through some of our subdivisions. So, yeah, it's difficult still to get construction money. I think they're keeping it really close to the vest.
Difficult with residential?
Correct, with residential.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with what goes on in the commercial world.
Right.
And Kendall probably is.
Yeah, the term is acquisition, development, and construction financing, which is still a problem around the country. From what I can tell, more so in other parts of the country than here in New Hampshire. We are a small market, relatively speaking, in terms of new housing development compared with the bigger states, of course. But still, we have the same issues to deal with as Dee is talking about. Again, the retail or the mortgage financing is one issue, customers getting the money to buy the houses that Ashwood builds, but the developer getting the money to buy the land, to put in the infrastructure, the roads, the sewers, get ready to build the houses. So it's a tight rope walk that developers have to go through all the time, and it's never easy, and things are a bit different nowadays than they were years ago. How are the buyers different? Are they any different, Dee, right now?
The buyers are certainly different.
How so?
Many ways. The things, well, geez, where do I start with that question? Buyers, are a lot more hesitant to buy. What we're seeing within our organization is the over 55 market is actually the one that's out there and the bulk of our business right now, or probably before snow flew. We don't see it as much during the winter, but that was the bulk of the contracts that we were agreeing to and houses that we were building. Mm-hmm. We're seeing the over 50, the over 400,000 and up. We're competing a lot more with existing inventory. So as a new construction, as a residential builder, we didn't really see that before. Now we're, looking at quoting houses for people around 600,000, but they're looking at things that are already standing that have all the stuff they want.
Okay, I have to lift my chin up off the ground here because 600,000, yes, 55. That's our age group, and yeah, at one time we were in a $600,000 home. We lost that, went way down. But you're finding that 600,000?
Not in the over 55, but yes, we're seeing. We have a subdivision here in Nashua, actually, and that's where we're seeing those buyers come out. Not a lot, certainly not anything close to where we were probably 4 or 5 years ago. But interesting, not to get off on that tangent of the over 55, but that's who we're seeing come to our over 55 is the people that had the huge houses and they want to be done with all that. So it's interesting.
That speaks...
Because we're the baby boomers.
Well, that speaks to what's going on demographically here in the state. It's one of the oldest populations in the country in terms of states.
Really?
Oldest population. First or second, normally. I think Maine is first. Older population, generally in terms of house buying power, a little stronger, a little bigger balance sheet, if you will. They've owned houses, they've sold houses, and perhaps looking for their final retirement home, if you will. And so builders and developers really have to keep that in mind in terms of there is that market segment out there. Dee, do you have any multifamily buildings for the 55 and older, apartment buildings or condos or detached, or are they all detached building that you do?
We don't have multifamily. We have duplex.
Duplexes, okay.
Yeah, duplex for the over 55.
Yep.
So,
So there's, if I may just finish my point, there is that segment of the market for the real estate industry is the older population, 55 and older. One of the problems with that is those who have the older homes wish to sell it, downsize into their final home.
Right.
The question is, what's going to happen with those older houses, larger houses, energy inefficient houses? So that's a challenge. Now, the other end of the spectrum is first-time homebuyers, the entry level. We'll talk about that at future shows.
I was just going to say,
on Nailed It, we'll have some folks on to talk about that particular segment of the industry. That if we cannot meet that particular market in terms of entry-level housing, both rental and for purchase, we're going to have a hard time attracting workforce for the other industry sectors in the state. And
we're going to take a quick break. I am sitting here with Kendall Buck, who is with the New Hampshire Builders Association, and Dee DeHarness with Ashwood Development. We'll be right back talking about the housing market. Welcome back. This is Glynis. You are listening or hopefully just joining us. If you're just joining us, I am Glynis with 2 G's in a pod, and I am sitting in my pod with Kendall Buck and Dee DeHarness. We were talking about the housing market development, and during the break, we were talking about the 55 and older and how me as a over 55 discussing downsizing homes and the goods and the bads to it. Going from a 400, we're in a 4,200 square foot home. I can't see myself living in a 2,000 square foot condo, but I'd like to. So you do a lot of the 55 and older communities.
Yes, we do, Glynis. And what we found actually, builders that offer services too to help people make that adjustment. I just thought of it as you were talking, which we didn't talk about on the break, but have a leg up, because what can happen is they can come in and help you kind of get your head around going from your probably family home where you raised your family, or your big giant home that you wanted at one stage in your life, to getting into something not quite as large, but still accommodating everything you need, helping you go through your things, organize movers. So there is a benefit to working with the right builder, I think, that can kind of step you through and walk you through those steps to that transition.
Yeah, because it's not as easy as it sounds. Oh, I'm going to downsize, and I will go to a nicer little place. I don't have to snow shovel. I don't have to mow the lawn anymore. We're free. My husband and I would be free to go, off to the Caribbean when we want to. Our kids are grown.
Well, it is a separate part of the industry. The real estate industry is how to deal with that clientele. And through our association, we have resources for members in terms of addressing the older population, whether it is making sure that the homes that you build or the condos that you build do have the right amenities for folks who are getting on in age, something as simple as lower counters, wider doors for eventual wheelchair use, those sorts of things. The resources that we have and the training that we have at the association to put professionals, builders, and real estate folks in the right spot to deal with that clientele is important. Whether we have our Sales and Marketing Council information or our training for what's called Certified Aging in Place Specialists, specialized training to deal with that demographic, which, as I said early on, is very prominent here in the state.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a big, it's the baby boomer generation. And I know Gen X or the millennials now, they're not looking, because I have 2 of my own, they are not looking for what we wanted when we were that age or when we were in our 30s, starting families. And, things are different now. And do I want, I wanted the big luxury house. That was my dream. I wanted the big house with the 3-car garage and enough bedrooms for the kids to have friends. But now I look at all this and I say, I don't want this anymore. I look at things that have to be done in the house. I don't want to spend my time fixing the house up anymore. I don't. So do you find that, Dee, that you're getting a lot more of us of us baby boomers looking to, like you said, you have the resources to walk us through it, to start it, because it isn't as easy as people think it is.
It's actually, for a lot of people, really emotional because you have 20 or 30 years of your life, typically, that you've been in your home, that you're trying to make disposition for, if you will. So we are working with a lot of the over 55 community. We have a specific subdivision actually in Litchfield, New Hampshire, that's over 55, and that seems to be the market that's out and doing things, which is where we left off, I think, before the break. And they do require they have different things that they want versus the people that are coming out and building their first or second home. They know what they want. They have a list. They've researched it. They want a lot of the amenities, but they certainly want some of the things Kendall just said, which is they're thinking about when they get older. And, this being the home that they want to stay in for their last home. So they're thinking of those types of amenities and how to make their life easier. Basically, like you said, either they travel in the winter or they're not retired or anything like that, but they just want life to be easier, I think.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Do you find many, again, in that population, want in their home a home office for staying busy, for keeping some business going? You mentioned many of them still are not retired, even though they may be 60, 65 or whatever. Do you find many of them want to have a home office?
Yes.
What are you finding the needs and desires and requests that might be a little different than they were years ago in terms of the design of the house, whether it's a 55 and older or other segments of your market? What's different that they're asking for?
Okay. This is a little off the cuff, and I'm not really answering the question, but I want to throw it in. People don't want telephone lines anymore. So
you think? What is a telephone?
But even
yeah, right?
Yeah, but I mean, even our over 55 clientele, we used to do 4 telephone lines and 4 cable, let's say. People don't really want those telephone lines anymore. But the home office is a huge thing. I think a lot of folks, when they get close to retirement age, they're still doing other things. They're either starting up something of their own business, or they've been involved in a business that they can still do things remotely from home, but they're not going to an office every day. The railings on the outside of the shower. I mean, I work with a lot of folks that are 55 to 65. They're young. They don't need that at this particular time. However, they're thinking of the future.
The future.
I even have folks moving into our over 55 community that are bringing their parents with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they may have...
That's big now.
It's very big. And they're all in an over 55 community. It's actually fantastic because everybody's helping each other.
Are they asking for, when they bring their parents, a separate living quarters? And how are you dealing with that in terms of zoning and whether they want separate bathrooms, separate kitchen facilities? Are you able to accommodate that or not?
Depending on where we're building, in our particular over 55 that we're building right now, the way we accommodate that is kind of a separate area in the house that's 2 bedrooms, but they use one as a bedroom, one as a living room with a bathroom. So that's on one end of the house. I haven't had a lot of requests for another kitchen. Mm-hmm. I finished basements for the younger of the family for their master suite, and then the parents would be on the first floor in a ranch. In Nashua a little more, I've had the request for a completely separate in-law apartment. So yeah, I think like the low maintenance to no maintenance, everything we're building in the over 55 is composite deck and vinyl rails. Everything's maintained by the association, so they're not shoveling, they're not plowing, they're not taking care of their yards. When you do have the folks that are on the younger end of that spectrum, they can still put some plants in. They can still do things that they want, but they don't have to worry about any of the maintenance.
Right, which is the thing that I always, it's daunting at my age to look out at it and say, oh, my God, even my garden has become daunting. It really has, because I say, whoa, I'm getting up there, and I've got more things in my life that I want to be doing before the end of it, which so I see what's happening with us, Dee, is we're still in our big, huge home, which it was built in the late 70s, needs so much stuff done. But what we've done, my daughters, my millennials, have moved back. We thought we were empty nesters, but
don't tell me
the
that.
nest has come back again.
Well, I wanted to talk about that, Glynis, in terms of what the industry is looking to try to advance in this state relative to a couple of things, bringing it together. Larger, older homes that baby boomers have owned that don't necessarily want to keep it, as you're just describing. Children looking for their first home. How do you accommodate both of those needs? And in some cases, many cases, zoning will not allow, as I said a moment ago,
that was going to be my
in-law
question.
apartments or what have you,
Right.
in terms of having separate quarters in the same large structure, if you will, or even with a garage, so that the children with their kids can move back to the old homestead, don't necessarily need that large house nor can afford that house, but if they could have an in-law apartment, get income from that, or maybe not income, but at least for their parents to stay there. Two different ways of looking at it. That can help alleviate some of the problems that we're talking about in terms of the older houses, the older population, dealing with them, giving a new place for the older population to move to, yet still accommodating and bringing up some potential opportunities for the younger generation to get into their first home. So you're finding that the real estate industry, building industry, is trying to move forward to encourage more allowances of in-law apartments in the remodeling of existing houses, if that's making sense.
Do you find that with Ashwood? You're getting kind of both the younger and the older trying to come together, either the younger wanting to keep their parents at home, because nursing homes are going to become, I hope they become obsolete, because we have these big homes and our children would like to, have their parents stay at home.
Aging in place, it's called.
Aging in place. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to do. Do you find a lot of this is now, do you think this is the way the market is going to start turning, Dee?
I do. We don't see it. I see a little bit of it, but to the extent with us, it's more not creating an in-law suite, but building a big house for 2 or 3 families to live in. And we've done a couple in their family build right next door to their parents. So we've done a few.
So we're going back to the old 3 family. Isn't that interesting?
It's interesting because what I was going to comment as you guys were talking is I don't see, there was a time when between 20 and 30 years old, that's when you were making your money, you wanted to buy your house. I don't see the young folks now doing that in their 20s. They're moving home. They're staying at home to save money. Mm-hmm. And probably after 30 is when we're seeing some people come out and want to start doing their first-time home buying and stuff like that.
Well, my children are in that boat now. My daughter and her husband and our 2 grandchildren just bought their first house. They're in their mid-30s.
Yep.
They had to save up. They're in Massachusetts, higher priced, and just the day before Christmas moved into their new house.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have a full house again, raising little children.
Well, not in my house. I can go visit. Dee, let's move on and talk a little bit about what are you finding in terms of the permitting of new homes and developments these days? I know that as an association, Home Builders Association, we're very much engaged in the issues that we need to, at the legislative level here in the state or in the different agencies, to try to foster less regulation or more reasonable regulation when it comes to building and development. What are you finding? What are the challenges? Anything eased up in terms of getting permits to develop and build new houses?
Well, you would think that's what should be happening, but no, it hasn't. One thing I think is really important to note that in New Hampshire, I can't speak for other states, but it depends on the town you're building in, unfortunately. So currently we're in 5 different towns or cities in New Hampshire, and every single one of them has different requirements as to how you go about permitting, has different requirements for the inspections that they want. So to answer that fairly, no, I don't think it's eased up. I think I don't think it's gotten harder either. I'd like to see some regulation that puts everything more neutral, so that you build a house in the state of New Hampshire and you're building a house in the state of New Hampshire. You're not
without zoning issues
what
and
Nashua wants compared to
Right.
Manchester compared to Pelham. We lose a lot of time weeding through the individual requirements of each municipality. So I don't think it's eased up. If anything, maybe a little tighter, a little stricter, which you would think would not happen due to the fact that there hasn't been a lot of new construction over the last 3 or 4 years. You would hope that people would try to work with you a little more to encourage builders to be out there pulling permits and building houses, but we don't see that.
All of this adds, Glynis, to the cost of housing.
Oh,
Building
absolutely.
new housing, over-regulation, which, again, we can talk about in the future, but it's a real challenge, particularly in the New England states, here in New Hampshire, with the notion of home rule. And, of course, that's a whole political discussion for another day.
So it's not unique to just New Hampshire then. I mean, is it on a state-to-state regulation? You know, each state has their own zoning.
It's unique to New England in terms of, again, the notion of home rule. Every community, every town, every municipality wanting to have a say in what goes on in their town. As opposed to most other parts of the country, it's a much larger geographical area that has the same type of laws and regulations affecting our industry. Could be county-wide, which are large counties in some states, or it could be this is the regulation throughout the entire state. So a much larger area, so builders only have one set of rules to deal with. Instead of in New Hampshire, Dee said they're in how many communities? 6 or 8 communities?
Yeah.
6 or 8 different sets of rules and regulations.
So you've got 6. See, that's okay.
Makes it very
that's
difficult.
crazy.
Makes it very difficult.
That's
And
crazy.
it makes it costly.
And the permitting fees and the impact fees and the amount of money that it costs to actually even get something started seems to change every year, and it's never down. It's always up. So again, you're working with buyers, you're quoting pricing. By the time that becomes a contract or comes to fruition, your estimate and everything that you've planned on is, not well, I could go off on a tangent on construction costs, but with the permitting is not what you planned on when you initially started the process, and they have fire department impact fees, school impact fees, road impact fees. There's a lot of upfront cost that, and again, varies hugely throughout the state. One town I'm paying $12,000 to get a permit, whereas in another town I'm paying $1,200 for 2 times the house.
And
So
then
it's really-
ultimately it comes down to property taxes. I don't even want to tell you what I pay in Amherst. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So does this mean, Dee, that you want to put up in Litchfield, and I'm sure it's different from Nashua and Hudson, you want to put something up in Litchfield. Do you have to go through the process of going in front of the planning board? Do you have to present your, development that you envision to the planning board, the municipality, or take me through that? How do you step by? Let's take Litchfield.
We're a developer, so we, as we like to say, we buy the forest. We get all the engineering done. We have the site plans designed by the engineers. We go in front of, the planning board typically to get approval for the subdivision. And then we can start putting roads in and things like that. So I am the upfront of getting subdivision approval. I don't know of a lot of issues in that end of it. But typically what will happen is when we're at that point, we will go meet with the city, the town, or whatever, and ask them what they're going to require for us to pull a building permit. So I'm sitting with them, doing a list, finding out what they need for us to actually build a house. And normally that covers it, but it doesn't always, because by the time you go from that point to the next point, they've changed something. So you think you have all your ducks in a row, so to speak, to pull that permit, and you don't. And the municipalities, in my understanding, all of them have about a unspoken 30-day rule to get a permit to build, a permit for construction. So, but I've had towns where I've waited 8 weeks to get a permit. So now you have a buyer for 2 months going, where's my house?
Where's my house?
There's not even an excavator on the site. So I'd like to see some changes in that realm for sure.
Do you see, well, you know what I want to do, Kendall, with Dee, let's take it back. How did you become a developer? Own this business? I think it's really cool that a lady is doing it. Take us through how you have gotten Ashwood Developers.
Well, quite honestly, I'm not the owner. I run the day-to-day operations of the company, so I probably can't answer that whole question unless you want to ask it differently. Ashwood's been in business 31 years. I've been with Ashwood 15 of those.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So I don't think I can answer the question the way that you're asking it because I'm not the actual owner.
See, I thought it was the owner, but that's all right.
That's okay.
That's okay. That's all right. So, are you finding that is there more new construction coming in now, and what's hindering the new construction is these municipalities and these towns, fighting it, like you just said. It's taking, sometimes they say 30 days, it's taking 8 weeks.
I think there are builders and developers out there that stay away from certain towns and cities because of the restrictions. So honestly, and I will not name any of them, but we'll talk at social events or whatever, us builders, and be like, oh, don't build in blah, because they're not easy to work with. One of the big hindrances in southern New Hampshire is actually land, buildable land.
Really?
Some of the restrictions, I guess you could say, on what's considered developable and buildable. Certainly southern New Hampshire, but that's where everyone wants to be. So
right.
you're fighting that battle.
And with that, part of that battle is the notion that many communities have been fostering larger lots throughout the years in terms of putting a new home on it, and that just chews up the very limited and scarce amount of land. The idea of higher density is what is needed to be understood. Being able to build more homes on smaller lots closer together, therefore conserving a lot of land for open space and for recreation, and not using up land unnecessarily. And so it's been opposite in terms of what citizens of many communities have wanted to do. They say, we want larger lots because it will make it much better in terms of not using up all our land, and it's just the opposite. And it's difficult for people to understand that for some reason.
It is. It's difficult for me because I am not a native New Hampshire. I'm from New Jersey. And everything you just said is New Jersey. This is what happened to New Jersey. All buildable. There's no more buildable lots left in New Jersey because they had regulations that they had to build low income housing. That became a very big thing. Anything that was buildable land is gone. And I would hate to see that in New Hampshire.
But to speak to, I think Kendall hit on the open space concept. Our community that we're building in Nashua is 84 homes, single-family homes. They're not huge lots. However, 60% of the original land that we bought had to be kept for open space, so it can never be touched.
Good.
So you do have homes that are not on giant lots, and they're not, 100 feet apart. However, you also have 60% of that original land that was bought that was preserved to never be touched. So I think that's where you were trying to go with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
There needs to be more of that allowed.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Nashua. Where are you? Can you reveal where you're building?
Yes, I would love to reveal it.
Thank you. We're in Nashua.
We're building off Ridge Road. It's called Gagnon Farms.
Yes.
And the main road through the community is Cherrywood Drive. So
wow,
yeah,
that's a beautiful area over there.
Nice area. Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful area.
You're up in Concord as well.
We're in Concord, Litchfield, Milford. I think that's it. I feel like I missed
Still
something.
over in
Hudson?
Rochester? Or
No,
not?
we're not in
Not
Rochester anymore. No. No, we're not doing anything in Hudson right now. No. Although a lot of people are.
Yeah.
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 Hudson's
George,
a
you're from
happening
Hudson,
spot.
right? You live in Hudson. Yeah. So do you find that a lot of this with the new building, the development, your buyers, are a lot of them coming from another state below, near us?
Nashua, we do get a lot of people from Massachusetts moving to Nashua. Yeah.
Right.
I haven't seen that in the other communities that we're building as much. Just more Nashua. Nashua's desirable. A lot of people want to be in Nashua.
Yeah.
So
Used to be it still was in the running for the number one place to live in the country. But so you're finding that at least I'm going back to this losing the land. At least you guys are keeping the view, because we have the view tax. I mean, how absurd is that?
Well, that's a whole different issue. But what you're finding is that professional planners, regional planning commission staff, those who understand that there is the right way of utilizing the limited natural resources, yet still being able to provide the needed housing, which is an economic driver for this state, there is a way of those coexisting. You do have, unfortunately, in a minority, I believe, those vocal citizens who don't understand the proper way of managing those resources, yet still allowing economic development. Not building is not an option. Again, building is 15 to 20%, real estate in buildings, 15 to 20% of the gross domestic state product here in the state, an economic engine. And everyone, or most people, understand that as the housing industry goes, so goes the economy around the country. Same here in New Hampshire. We have not been able to contribute to the economy substantially over the last 4 or 5 years. That is beginning to come back. In many circles, you hear those who are trying to foster economic development in the state to say we need to build more houses in all price ranges, from first-time home buying up through even luxury homes. You have to have a robust real estate and construction industry. And so there are many that don't want any building. They want to roll up the carpet, so to speak, or close the bridge. That's not reasonable and not healthy for the state of New Hampshire.
Well, you're building in Nashua, which is a great thing. Okay, this is helping Nashua. What is the development over there? What is the size of the homes? Are they single-family homes?
yeah, they are single family. The size of the homes is 2,400 square feet and up. The price point is $400,000 to $700,000. Yeah, it's
Pool, all amenities. Are you going to have the amenities?
Yeah. There's we're pretty far into that community. We've been there for a little while, but yes, we're currently on the new section of the community. We call it Ballerina Court. Everything is that's a luxury part of the community, so we're excited about that. We have a few going down there, and they're just beautiful.
When you say
homes.
luxury, $700,000, is that the luxury?
Yeah.
So we still have the luxury homes going up.
As I said, though, we're seeing
Less and less of that, though.
Years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we were probably building 12 to 20 a year in that range, just that range. And now we're not seeing that. But what I'm seeing is I have buyers come forward and they're going, well, I'm looking at another luxury neighborhood in Nashua and comparing it to building new. So people, I think we're not competing against resale or existing homes. I don't think that's the case. Builders are definitely now competing with that again. We weren't for a long time.
What's the strength in allowing you to compete now with existing housing?
Meaning, why is that happening?
Yes, why can you compete now in terms of building a new home when a customer is also looking at an existing home?
Well, I think I might have worded it wrong. Actually, it's more difficult for the builder because what's happening is before, new construction was always a little more expensive than our existing home. And quite honestly, you paid a little bit more. Well, you paid a little bit more, but you got what you wanted, and, it's just the way that it worked. Now what we're seeing is the existing homes that are coming on the market are those homes that were built during that time frame where people are in deep, so to speak. they want to sell them and they want to sell them fast. They want to get out of them. So we have to price our houses to compete with those houses, but I'm not saying it right, but we're not giving all that.
And George is giving me the 1 minute signal here. Ashwood Development. Is there, do you have a website?
We do. www.ashwoodcompanies.com.
And there you can see anything that's going on now and what's up and coming in the Ashwood development.
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Correct. Including Nashua. Is Nashua up there?
Yes, Nashua is.
Terrific. And Kendall, thank you very much for nailed it. We did a good job. The first nailed it. Wait till